All set? Okie dokie. Let's get going. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming out to this Lincolnville Select Board meeting on the 24th of March. Let's see. Karen, before we get going, would you care to read the quote?
Sure. Time flies over us, but leaves its shadow behind. Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to open the podium for any non-agenda items. For Citizens Forum. Yep.
Rosie Gary, 152 Youngtown Road. I just want to make everyone aware that this Saturday at the Lincolnville Community Building, there is a benefit for Kim Moran, whose house burned flat somewhere around Christmas time. And there's a spaghetti supper, and then there will be music also. I'm hoping that the community and people will come out to support this. She had no insurance, and it starts at 5 o'clock and stops at 7. And if there's any questions, please get a hold of me.
Excellent. Any questions for Rosie? All right. Thanks very much. Anyone else for the Citizens Forum? Seeing nobody, let's move along to the administrator's report.
Beyond the agenda, just want to make sure everybody's aware that nomination papers are available for elected office. Need to be, you can get those during normal business hours here at the town office. Need to be returned by April 11th, 4:30 in the afternoon, with at least 25 valid signatures and no more than 100. And the other issue is our current town attorney is resigning his position at Jensen Baird to go to work as an assistant state attorney general, attorney general's office. So we can get moved over to another attorney, which would be a third in a couple of years here. At some point, the board may want to have a sit down with him, just to Ben McCall is his name, to make sure you're on board, comfortable.
Yeah, maybe we should try to schedule that.
Yeah.
When timely and appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
Question for David.
Yeah, sure.
Question for David. Have we heard anything back from the DOT on that letter that we sent to?
On the ferry terminal,
Thank you.
we received an acknowledgement that they received it.
Okay.
The project manager for that project was Mackenzie
Right.
Kurtzbergen. She's on leave.
Yeah.
The new project manager said, yep, I've received it. I'll review with the project team and we'll get back to you. But I think he's on a steep learning curve
Gotcha.
at the moment.
Any other questions for David on the administrator's report? All right, seeing nothing, let's move along to upcoming meetings and announcements.
All meetings are here at the town office unless announced otherwise. Lakes and Ponds Committee meets Tuesday, March 25th, 7 p.m. Planning Board meets Wednesday, March 26th, 6 p.m. Land Use Committee meets Monday, March 31st, 4 p.m. Lincolnville Central School Committee meets on Monday, April 7th, 6 p.m. at the Lincolnville Central School. The Budget Committee meets on Tuesday, April 8th, 6 p.m. Select Board is going to have another Community Resilience Workshop on Tuesday, April 8th, 6 p.m. Planning Board's meeting Wednesday, April 9th, 6 p.m. Recreation Commission meets, it says Thursday, but it's not Thursday. It's Monday, April 14th, 6 p.m. And the Select Board meets next in regular session on Monday, April 14th, 6 p.m.
Thank you very much. And I'm remiss to say that select person hand is excused for the evening. So that's why his chair is empty. Are there any other upcoming community events anyone wishes to share? Yeah, please.
Yes, Susan Silverio, 105 Proctor Road. Please put on your calendar July 12th for the Strawberry Festival. Planning is underway. There will be music, entertainment, and the usual local strawberry shortcake available, and many other activities. The parade, of course.
I like the wee bit of hope on this spring.
Yeah.
Very
Already in touch with the strawberry grove.
great, thank you. Any other upcoming community events?
Yeah, I got one, but it's a heads up in the next couple of months. There's going to be a load of a couple few, maybe 4 cords of firewood delivered to that woodshed depot there. And Lincolnville's being asked to stack it this time for some reason. I don't know why, but we got to stack it. So I have to take a lot of people actually. So if anybody would like to help out, I'll let you be in touch with me and I'll let you know when it gets there. That's to you out there in internet land too.
TV land,
Yeah, yeah.
YouTube land, yeah. Okay, great, thank you. And moving along to the meeting minutes, we have 2 sets of meeting minutes. And if there is anything jumping out at anyone, I will entertain a motion.
I move that the board approve the March 10th, 2025 meeting minutes as presented.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing nothing, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And then we have a set from the 17th as well.
I move that the board approve the March 17th, 2025 meeting minutes as presented.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much.
What's the matter with you?
It's feeling punchy after his drive from Augusta.
He's all right.
All right, and next up, we have John Pinsent here to speak to us. Please come on down to the podium.
Thank you. And thank all of you for doing the work you do and showing up on a night like this, and for all the folks who come in tonight too. I did want to, I should have stood up and said something when you were asking for community events, because on April 17th, is potluck, and April 7th, at the, let's see, I think it's going to be at the Historical Society. And it's a potluck. People bring their own food and their own plates and so forth, utensils. And the idea is to have to start something like that, so that having to do with agriculture. There'll be a speaker there, Gene English, who'll be talking about starting seeds and hopefully getting people to start their own seeds and do more gardening. So, which is kind of what this is about. I'm talking about food sovereignty. I mean, you folks probably already know about the law that was passed in the state, but for those who may not, and for people maybe listening, it was passed in 2021. And it had to do with what it said was direct producer to consumer transaction. And what it means is an exchange of food or food products directly between a food producer and a consumer by barter, trade, or purchase on the property or premises owned, leased, or rented by the food producer at roadside stands, fundraisers, farmers markets, and community social events like the Strawberry Festival, for example, or through buying clubs, deliveries, or community-supported agricultural programs, herd share agreements, and other private agreements. With respect to food or food products, means food or food products that are grown, produced, processed, or prepared for human consumption, including but not limited to vegetables, fruit, milk or milk products, meat or meat products, poultry or poultry products, fish or fish products, seafood or seafood products, cider or juice, acidified foods or canned fruits or vegetables. Pretty much covers the whole gamut of what anybody might be producing here in town. The statement of policy, local control. Through local control, preserve the ability of communities to produce, process, sell, and purchase and consume locally produced foods. Small scale farming and production. Ensure the preservation of family farms and traditional foodways through small scale farming and food production. Again, this is all in the Maine Food Sovereignty Act, in the Constitution, in the Maine State Constitution. Improved health and well-being, improve the health and well-being of citizens of this state by reducing hunger and increasing food security through improved access to wholesome, nutritious foods by supporting family farms and encouraging sustainable farming and fishing. Self-reliance and personal responsibility. Promote self-reliance and personal responsibility by ensuring the ability of individuals, families, and other entities to prepare, process, advertise, and sell foods directly to customers intended solely for consumption by the customers or their families. There's obviously a whole bunch more in this act, but I'm not going to read that. But there are some examples from other towns. But first, I have a question. I know that there was a food sovereignty ordinance presented here some years ago. I wasn't around, I wasn't around, or I didn't know about it, but it was turned down because the lawyer, I think at the time, and I don't know if that was before or after this Food Sovereignty Act.
After.
It was after.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, and it was still turned down.
Yep.
I'm just curious about what the reasons were for that, or if anybody remembers why it was turned down.
I don't know. I think it was before my time, actually.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. David, do you have a crisper? I could stumble through it, but
Not a crisp recollection, with the exception of that I don't believe we had anything that prohibited all the things that are allowed in the state's Food Sovereignty Act, and
yeah, I think that was
So,
it.
kind
So,
of,
yeah, so it was actually presented twice, at
Uh-huh.
least while I've been on the board, and I think the general sentiment was that, along with the multitude of other language that's included in what the state adopted, there didn't seem to be a presence of prohibitions here locally to prevent any of that from happening.
I
And
think-
so, incurring the cost and the process of adopting an ordinance didn't seem like something to
Uh-huh.
pursue at the time.
Well, there's now over 100 towns in Maine that have a food sovereignty ordinance. And there's a fair bit of support here in town for such an ordinance. There's examples from Camden and Northport, Rockport. They vary a little bit. Hope and Appleton in their food sovereignty ordinance, they don't exempt poultry and meat the way other ordinances do. For some, that's, the fear or the concern is the liability of tainted meat and so forth. So, we could present a couple of different examples, one that includes something similar to Hope and Appleton, and one that exempts those two items, such as the food ordinance in Northport. It's pretty straightforward. Really, there's only a page and a half. I'll just briefly, as quickly as I can, kind of go through it. So basically repeat some of the things that the state food sovereignty law says. Direct producer to consumer transaction. Direct producer means a face-to-face transaction intended for human consumption, including food or food products at the site of production of those food or food products. Local food means any food product or drink that is grown, produced, or processed by producers or processors for human consumption, defined as herein defined, who sell directly face-to-face with their patrons through farm or home-based sales. Producer means any farmer or gardener who grows any plant for food or drink or raises any animal for food or drink. The processor means any individual who processes or prepares local food in a private home kitchen. A patron, with regard to local food, the last person who purchases for human consumption or consumes the local food does not resell the local food and has been informed the local food produced in an uninspected, unlicensed establishment, and the local food has not been inspected by the applicable state agency. State food law means any provision of Title VII or Title 22 that regulates direct producer to consumer transactions. It's a reference to the food sovereignty law. Licensure and inspection. Except for the provisions of paragraph 2 below, producers and processors in the town are not subject to license or inspection, provided transactions are only between producers or processors and patrons at the site of production, including sales that are made directly to a patron face-to-face, occur at a site where the food food product originated, and patrons understand that the product is not manufactured under license from or inspected by the applicable state agency. Meat and poultry processors are subject to all state and federal licensing and inspection requirements, and are not exempt under this ordinance for license or inspection. Anyway, there are plenty of examples on the internet from lots of different towns, like I said, over 100 now in the state of Maine. And I wish I'd gotten those examples to you before the deadline. That was a faux pas on my part, so I apologize to those who were expecting to see more action on that tonight. But you folks have not had a chance to look at those, so it'll give us a chance. It probably means that it wouldn't get on the agenda or on the warrant for this June, but for November meeting, I hope that we get this ordinance on the warrant. So any questions or comments about any of this from anybody would be great.
Yeah.
I guess I don't understand. I mean, why have over 100 towns adopted an ordinance when we already have a state law? Is there a potential? Are they just trying to, like, what's the point
Yeah.
of doing it if we can already do it? Is it just to protect us from state laws that may change in the future?
Well, that's my take on it pretty much too. And also, I think Sandy might have a point to make on that I would like to hear him if he could. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that, yes.
Yeah.
I see.
Up with you, and then we'll invite Sandy,
Okay.
just so we can keep the
Right.
flow of conversation, and then also
Sure.
all our millions of viewers and on
Yeah,
YouTube.
right. Yeah, also, it's not just small towns that have ordinances. Bangor has one, Auburn, I think, has some pretty good sized towns. About a quarter of Maine's population now has food sovereignty ordinances. So I think the reasons are varied, but I think it's a way of protecting and having local control over the food that's produced here, and having that sort of codified at a local level.
Any
All right, thank you.
questions for John before he runs away?
Yeah, no,
No? Okay. All right.
All right, thank
Sandy,
you.
you had your hand up. Yeah. Yeah, come on down and introduce yourself. Yep.
Sandy Cameron, 107 Youngtown Road, Lincolnville, Maine. In speaking with John today, back and forth, we had a little email. We're talking about this whole thing. And to answer your question, something, a light bulb moment for me in all this regulation, I was going through the state's act that they put together. And it appears that the act is a provision to allow the towns to adopt this ordinance if they want to. Okay, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that these things are part of the towns or the state's going to stay away. And I'll specifically point this out. It says a municipality or plantation may adopt ordinances regarding direct producer to consumer transactions, and the state shall recognize such ordinances by not enforcing those laws or implementing rules with respect to those direct producer to consumer transactions that are governed by the ordinance. So I think that's why there's so many towns adopting this, is because even though the state has put this into an act, it doesn't necessarily boil down to the towns themselves. Is that what you?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Where does the regulation and the enforcement come from?
It will come, yeah, that's a good question. It sounds like it's really coming from the town itself, and the towns are more or less saying, we're not enforcing, essentially. That the idea is it's an ordinance to allow the free commerce of consumer to producer amongst the producers in the town. Or
We're not enforcing if they adopt the state.
Right.
ordinance?
If you read if Rockport, and there's I go down a rabbit hole in this because we also in this discussion,
Yeah.
but Rockport and Camden adopted ordinances, and they very closely reflect what the state's act provided with the same wording. Camden chose to push it a little further. They're actually marking produce, so it identifies it to consumers that this produce is subject to, it's just production. It's not actually inspected, FDA approved or anything like that. But Rockport just adopted it flat out, pretty much using the same verbiage that the state used in the act. Now, Hope and Appleton decided to do the double barrel to the state's rule to get all together, because there is a clause in here that requires the certification of the state's meat and poultry products to be inspected under this. So that's the one area that there's not a get out of jail free card under these ordinances if you adopt it within the state's act. So meat and poultry will still be inspected. However, Appleton and Hope went directly to the Declaration of Independence and the state's constitution and said, we're going to do what we're going to do regardless of what you want to do. So there's a couple different avenues to go with this. And I'm sure that my favorite's the second two, but that's just me. I like what Hope and Appleton did. However, it's probably a lot more preferable to the lawyers to try and stay closer with what the act of the state's doing. The intention of this is that the consumer has to be educated. The consumer has to understand the producers within the town, whose stuff they're buying. In a lot of cases, if you know the farmer, you know he handles his livestock well, or he handles his vegetables well, you're going to buy his produce or your favorite friend from the farm stand. That type of stuff. If the person is, you don't know who they are, you don't know where the meat's coming from, then, maybe some of the producers would voluntarily say, anyway, I'm going to have my meat done and poultry done under this inspection criteria, even though the state, the town's ordinance doesn't require me to do it. I'm still going to do this as a provision to the consumer. So there's a lot of different gray areas here with these ordinances, but apparently the ordinances as they stand have been adopted by the towns, and that's why we're having an explosion of these ordinances. It's not necessarily a guaranteed umbrella from the state. The state's just saying, we'll let you adopt this ordinance if you want to, and we will respect that and not require you to do these inspections and maintain producer to consumer sales without our typical state laws. Any questions? Did I answer it? Questions? Okay.
You did. I was going to ask a question about liability, but
No, go ahead.
oh, so is the point also to prevent lawsuits? Like if I buy bad, I buy eggs and I end up with salmonella, can I sue the town if they don't have an ordinance? Or
a lot of this hasn't been rolled out yet. What I understood, and this is just me, this is speculation, but the reason we didn't initially adopt it, I kind of tried to drill down on this, talk to a few people in the room, and I got was because there just wasn't enough precedent had been established yet at that time. Not enough towns had adopted it and actually been under those guidelines to see how it was going to work out. But apparently with 100 towns and on more, it seems like things are progressing pretty well. People are intelligent with their purchasing practices. The farmers are responsible with the product and the producing. There actually are specifics. If you go, it's actually quite easy. If you go online, you can look for these ordinances, and you can find they're only about 5 pages. Camden and Rockport's is only 2 pages. And Hope and Appleton are about 5 pages each, but it's fairly straightforward, and it does mention some liability in there, but it mostly talks about we trust that our townspeople can be educated as consumers and make good purchases, and people who are producing the food will be honest in what they're doing. So the hope is nobody sues anybody, nobody gets sick, it's one of those things. But I mean, if you know our regular food system, it lets us down quite often too. So, and it's not necessarily the healthiest. So,
I just got to say a couple things. Well, I hope that everyone who wants a food ordinance is happy with waiting. They're working towards November, because I think it's going to be too much of a crunch to get it on June's ballot. Because the town has to go to the attorney, see that it is defensible, etc. The idea, not the language, the idea. And secondly, I hope that in the meantime, between now and November, sorry, I'm blurring my words here, you guys come back to the board as a group, as a much larger group, because for me, it's tough spending the money, taxpayers' money, on attorney time from a small handful of people who say that they're advocating for this. And I think there's a heck of a lot of people in town who'd like to see this. I think the people would benefit. But I think it's upon you all to provide us, or provide me, I don't want to speak for you guys, with evidence that it's warranted, spending that money is warranted. That's all. third thing is I hope in between now and November, I hope, God, it could go on forever. I hope between now and then, you all as a group come up with a strategy for making this happen. That is, will you be working with Maine Farmland Trust and the guidance, the assistance they provide, the templates they provide, and legal advice? Or will you just be like cutting and pasting other documents from other towns? How, just get an idea, give us an idea if you could, how you propose to put that language together.
I think there's a lot of support here.
I tend to think there is
we
too,
would have had
but-
standing room only here tonight if the weather hadn't been the way it is,
Yeah.
looking at the number of people who bailed out the last minute and were providing support to
And
John.
like I said, unfortunately, I'd have to see that support.
So you will.
And I just, from my perspective, like, I feel like I'm gonna sound like a bureaucrat, but also, I've got a little homestead, right? And I've taken various state licensing, home food production courses with the state. I've worked on several different dairy farms with the state and their testing procedures and licensing procedures. I was a MOFGA apprentice a million years ago. And at least in my experience, I've never experienced the state being anything but bending over backwards to help facilitate small food producers and cottage industries, even if you're, someone that wants to make bread out of your home kitchen and you have cats and dogs. They're like, yeah, we'll clean your kitchen first. Keep your dogs and cats out of the kitchen while you're making and packaging your food, and we'll even test it periodically at no cost for you, and so I guess from my personal experience, I don't see the need. I don't see how, at least in our state, there's like this oppressive, restrictive level of bureaucracy that is preventing. If anything, I feel like there's so much education and free testing and free support and all of that kind of thing. So, I love the sentiment of a food sovereignty ordinance, but to your point, in incurring the costs of lawyers, and it costs money to draft an ordinance and the whole process. And, in these kind of lean economic times, we worked really, really hard to cut the budget down to where it is and still have programs that people are wanting and asking for. And so, I guess to your point, Mike, I feel like I'd need to hear a really compelling argument to ask our taxpayers to incur the cost to at least take this on now. Yeah, I guess that's the long and the short of it from my perspective. Yeah. Fern, do you have anything?
I feel the same way, although this is a worthwhile conversation at this point.
Sure.
I was gonna say what Mike said. I'd like to see more people, and I know
We understand this.
I know the weather hasn't helped any here, and this has been presented very well by both of you. But like Lately said, it's tough to ask all the taxpayers. I would like to see a bigger group, and I know there is a bigger group. And if we have to have a meeting somewhere else, that's what I'd like to see. And we've been through this once before, and I think maybe the way it was presented wasn't what it is now. I grew up on a little dairy farm here in Lincolnville. There was a business that came to us that bought that in the summertime when their business was open. They got 15 gallons of raw milk from us every other day to make their stew, their lobster stew. That's what raw milk or real cow's milk, or fresh cow's milk is what they said made their business. That's what they were known for. And when the state was doing an inspection at that facility, they said, what are those 5-gallon stainless steel containers? And it's like, oh, that's the milk for our stew. Where do you get that? Told them. That launched a whole different set of guidelines. You know, my thought process as I think about stuff like that, my thought process is right now, I can sell you carrots and potatoes and things of that nature. As long as you trust me, I can do the same with you. Things like milk and meat and pork and chicken. In my mind, those need to be more regular. So I'm wondering where the regulation is and who, yeah, and who's going to do it, and what if someone falls way out of the parameters of what needs to be, you know, guidelines? What if that happens? Yes, we need to count on somebody being honest. But more often than not, we're running into people who we have thought all our life honest, and there's at one time. You know, so those are the things that I worry about. And I really, just to what Mike said, I'm with him on that. That is my response. I'd like to see more people. I think it definitely drive it home.
I think what you're going to find is that people are going to be probably fairly closely aligned with the States Act,
Yeah.
which does require the meat and poultry inspection.
Yeah.
But
well,
basically, what I'm saying is that we'll align with that, but it's also, that will be a requirement that we mandate if you write the ordinance as such to follow the States Act. If you go like Hope and Lincolnville, Hope and Appleton, then essentially they've done something, they're kind of off on their own fiddle. They're running to a different tune. But that doesn't say that the producer doesn't have, they can still comply with that just to get the consumers.
Sandy, sorry, I hate to cut this conversation
Oh, yeah, no
off,
problem.
but it is 6:30. It's 6:30 right now. We're just gonna say it's 6:30. But so I'll just very quickly say, it sounds like this is the beginning of an ongoing conversation. So, but seeing as how it is 6:30 plus a couple of minutes, no. I just was watching the clock, and we have several public hearings that we are obliged to hold now. So we're gonna assume that we're gonna continue a conversation that we started here tonight. And we're just gonna put number 7 on pause until we work through these public hearings. And so I need a motion, please.
I move that the board open a public hearing concerning the liquor license application being sought by Dots Market.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? The public hearing is now open regarding the application being sought by Dots Market. Would the public like to comment? Being no comment from the public, I will entertain a motion.
I move that the board close the public hearing.
Thank you. So moved. Seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. We do have the applicant here. Can we invite you to the podium, please? Would you introduce yourself? Thank you. Hi, hello.
Hi, I'm Susan Barnes, the owner of Dots Market.
Welcome. Thank you. I'll just say right off the bat, I have no issue with the application, with the exception that you did include the distance to the school, but not the church. The Bay.
I think you don't have to, yeah, it's too far. It wasn't within,
2 miles.
within 2 miles of that's not what because I had my inspection today. And so they didn't make me include it. So I don't know if the town did, but they didn't.
Yeah,
They didn't ask me to include it on my within two.
Yeah,
it was within so many feet or within.
Oh, because you included the school, which is 6 miles away. So, so I was like, oh, well, the Baptist church is, probably less than 2 miles away.
Right. It's probably.
So,
less than 2 miles.
it's been,
But it says and place of work
Yeah.
here.
So it's not a big deal.
Okay.
All I'm saying is that what I would encourage the board is to, in the motion to, and I don't know, David, with the online, the very convenient online application thing that we have now, if they can make the amendment with you, or if,
I am certain that between Ms. Barnes and myself, we can work with Brandy to get that changed.
I can,
Yeah.
I can come in tomorrow.
just to make sure all of our Ts are crossed.
Right, right,
We
right.
want you to be successful. with
Right.
this, So
Right.
that would be my only.
So would that hold up the application for tomorrow? Okay.
I do have another question. It says, do you have a food menu? Don't you?
We're a prepared foods market. Yes.
But you
So-
said no,
Well, it changes daily,
but you
So
still
there's-
have a menu.
not a written menu. No. You come up to the counter and we
How do
tell
we
you.
know? Say I came in Monday and bought X and I come in Wednesday, there's gotta be something hanging there.
No, there's nothing hanging. Sandwiches. Our sandwiches sort of, but our menu changes daily, like our salads and our prepared foods. So it would
How
be
do I
hard,
know that?
because
How do
you
I
come
know?
in and you
I'm
look-
going Wednesday to Dots because they're having this.
because you come in every week and you just sort of know what we have.
I'm not trying to give you a hard time.
No, being honest, we don't have
Me
a
too.
printed menu per se. We
Okay.
don't have a printed menu. It
Okay.
changes, like we always have chicken salad, but that chicken salad changes. Or we always have a kale salad, but that changes. And we have entrees, but every day that entree is different. Sometimes like we've been trying to do fried chicken on Wednesdays. But sometimes that doesn't always happen. So, I mean, it's an evolving, changing menu.
It may be.
Because we're not a
We
restaurant.
don't have to,
Okay.
you know. Yeah, Robin.
Another question. So you're talking about serving beer and wine, not just selling bottles. of
Right, we
beer
do
and wine.
sell
Retail, 'cause
bottles,
you do
right,
that,
so
right.
now I've applied for an on-premise, so you
Right,
can come
but-
in
Okay.
and get a glass of wine or a beer and be able to sit down and eat your sandwich, or
Okay,
come in with friends and have a blueberry muffin and a glass of wine. I don't know. It seems like it's 7 in the morning.
so, okay, but you're not, I mean, it's just basic beer and wine. Your staff is opening a bottle and pouring it in a glass. You're not making,
Beer or wine? No.
well, like, mimosas and things like this and like cocktails. I'm just wondering,
It's just for poured beer and wine.
okay.
There's no mixology, so we're not a bar, if that's what you're.
Yeah, well, I guess.
It's really just for a glass of wine and a beer.
Hopefully not with breakfast.
The law says you can, but
Yeah.
I can't control.
Right.
I can't say, no, you can't have
Well-
it if the law says that you can.
Except that, well, which kind of gets to, so there's this provision about server training and we don't have a local ordinance, so we kind of don't have this provision. But it feels like I was really uncomfortable with the idea that people could be serving and not really having any certification from the state, like to know, like,
The
when to
state
shut
doesn't
someone off.
require it,
But yeah,
doesn't require it.
because we don't have a local law.
No bar requires it.
Well,
no.
that's not true.
No,
You still have to be a certified server.
You-
I
not
had to
in-
pass certification to serve.
It is though beyond the purview of this particular.
right, for this
project.
particular, you don't have to be a certified bartender. Because we're just opening up wine and pouring it.
Mhm.
I mean, do I foresee
Well-
somebody coming in and drinking 8 glasses of wine in an hour at Dots? Probably not.
Right. But it just, I mean, it just,
No,
I
I
don't want
mean-
you turning a blind eye to people just because you don't have to pay attention to.
But that's also beyond our.
Right, that comes in with the
Okay.
state, and that's when the state comes in, if we were to get, we get inspected. I've owned a pub and a bar before, I've been in the business for over 30 years, so never had anything against me. I've never overserved. So I don't foresee that being a problem. I see this as an amenity, not a huge addition to our bottom line. I see it as a nice amenity to be able to come in and have an entree and a glass of wine in the summertime, or, in the wintertime, have a beer with your, we have a lot of people wanting to do that. And we often have to go out and take the beer away because they
bought it,
they opened it. And so this actually allows us to have more control versus less control. That's how I see it, is that now we're enticing people that want to have a beer with their sandwich. Like, oh, you can get it. We just pour it for you. And we're controlling it and not that.
Okay.
Well, I just could point out, I don't see anything in the findings that we have purview over
Right.
in conflict with the application.
Right.
At all.
Thank you.
Yeah, so other than those like tiny little nitpick crossing T things.
Right, the church.
I would say, yeah, we're good. So, would someone care to make a motion?
I move that, where are we? Oh, I move that after having a public hearing, that the board grant the liquor license requested by Dots Market, and that the town administrator be authorized to indicate such on the Bureau of Alcohol and Lottery Operations portal.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing nothing. All those in favor? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for
Good night.
coming out on
Absolutely.
this snowy night. And then through the magical time warp of having many 6:30 public hearings, I will entertain a motion, please.
I move that the board close the public hearing.
Open.
No, we're gonna open this one. I'm
We
sorry.
need to open another
I'm
one.
caught in the time warp. I move that the board open the public hearing concerning the liquor license application being sought by the inn at Ocean's Edge.
Yes, thank you.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Thank you very much. The public hearing for the Inn at Ocean's Edge is now open. Would the public care to comment? Seeing no public caring to comment, can I please have a motion?
I move that the board close the public hearing.
Thank you very much.
Second.
And we do have applicant here. Do we have any questions? I would say the only thing, it's the opposite of Dots. Dots had the school, but not the Baptist church. You had the Baptist church, but not the school. So if you could just make that addition, I think I find no issue with the application otherwise under our purview.
Okay, thank you, Jesse Henry. I'm reminded that Mr. Gary once pointed out at one of these renewals that we had the mileage to the Baptist church incorrect. So we've straightened the church out. It wasn't 5 miles.
The legacy.
But for whatever reason, perhaps I'll blame the state online process, because basically we've just been photocopying the previous year's application each year. So the fact that we missed the school, David, is that something that, or did we miss the school?
You didn't list this, you did not list the school. I don't have the old application with me, but I think it said we wanted the shortest distance and it had or instead, but it now has and.
Yeah.
So,
In the making.
but I'm not sure of that, Jesse, so.
But just to make sure that you're successful in your application, I don't.
Number 20, please provide the name and distance from the premises to the nearest school and place of worship.
Yeah,
Okay,
fun,
so
huh?
we have the Baptist church at 2 miles. Thank you, Gary. And
6 miles.
6
trail.
miles.
6 miles.
Lincolnville Central.
Yeah.
okay,
Otherwise, any other questions for Jesse?
No.
If there aren't any, I will entertain a motion, please.
I move that after having held a public hearing, the board grant the liquor license requested by the inn at Ocean's Edge, and that the town administrator be authorized to indicate such on a Bureau of Alcohol and Lottery Operations portal.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much, and thank you for coming out on this
my pleasure.
very, very springy evening. And again, through the magic of time warp, we have yet another public hearing at 6:30. I will entertain a motion, please.
I move that the board open a public hearing concerning the liquor license application being sought by the Cellar Door Winery.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? The public hearing for the application concern for the Cellar Door Winery is now open. Would the public like to comment? Seeing no public wishing to comment on the Cellar Door Winery's application, I will entertain a motion, please.
Go ahead.
Vern.
Go ahead, buddy.
I move to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And I think, is Bettina out there? Yeah.
She's there.
We have the applicant here. Do we have any questions for Bettina?
No.
I find no fault with her application at all. I don't think.
have to do the church part.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that used to be either or.
It was or, yeah. Do you have a question?
Well, I just had a question. Noticing that the permanent increase of outdoor seating capacity, but it's been there for years, right? Have we been doing temporaries
Every year.
previous year?
The new bills format allows you to do it as a permanent,
Well, that's good.
as much as we all enjoy this time together.
Well, you're still gonna have to come for these special events.
All right, if there's no other questions, I will entertain a motion, please.
I move that after having held a public hearing, that the board grant the liquor license requested by the Cellar Door Winery, and that the town administrator be authorized to indicate such on the Bureau of Alcohol and Lottery Operations portal.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? Being none, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. And we have worked our way through those, and we have yet one more public hearing for agenda item number 9 for a special amusement permit application for Cellar Door.
I move to open the public hearing concerning the special amusement permit application filed by the Cellar Door Winery.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. Would the public like to comment?
What is an amusement? What does that entail?
A special amusement permit allows a holder of a liquor license to have and play live or recorded music, dancing, and a few other things, amusements. But you have to have a liquor license, so you can have something at your house and have dancing, and music.
They already do weddings too.
They do. And in order to have amusement or the music at those weddings, the owner is required to obtain a special amusement permit from the town because they have
And
an
the que-
alcohol license.
And the question from the audience, because we didn't make him get up to the podium, was what is a special amusement permit? In this case, it's very specific time, early in the evening. Yeah. Any other questions from the public? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the board close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. I believe the application is complete. Does anyone have any other questions for Bettina? Since she is here. If not, I will entertain a motion.
I move that after having held a public hearing, that the board finds the application submitted by Cellar Door Winery complies with the standards set forth in the ordinance governing the issuance, suspension, and revocation of special amusement permits for the town of Lincolnville, and the permit be granted.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you for coming out tonight. And having dispensed with those time sensitive, we will go back to agenda item number 7. And we have Susan here to present and talk with us.
Susan Silverio, Proctor Road coordinator of the Heart and Soul Lincolnville project. We do have another team member of our ad hoc committee. Sandy Cameron is here also. He may wish to also address. Many of the people here have been volunteers, have played significant roles in this 3-year project. And so what you have been shared, what we've shared with you is an action plan and a final summary report of the 3-year project that involved the town support. We very much appreciate the support that we've had from Select Board and the town administration that has administered the grant that provided all of the funding that we have utilized. That all went to materials and to the coach that guided us through this process. We're in phase 4 now, which is the action stage. So what we have presented to you is our final summary of all of our actions. That includes many public events and gatherings and online surveys and drawing sheet surveys. We spent a tremendous amount of effort involving, I'm counting 35 volunteers who played significant roles, in addition to the town-appointed ad hoc committee. And we also, again, a conservative estimate, we feel that we have had the participation of 491 residents. That's more than 20% of the population in town. Usually when there's a survey for community engagement, it's considered successful if 10% of response comes back from the citizens. So we feel that our work has been worthwhile in reaching people, not only in filling out a survey, but having in-depth conversations with 90 people, and then online surveys that people filled out in the privacy of their home. There was 182 responses to that survey. So what you have before you is the action plan that is in support of the statements that were the value statements that you resolved to, you passed with the resolution last July to support, to recognize as the value statements of the community of Lincolnville. Our next phase of this project is action. We don't foresee a lot of these things requiring town ordinances. You may be pleased to hear that. We do see that because the people of Lincolnville, the community of Lincolnville are so action-oriented and such can-do people that we feel we can continue to work together to benefit our town in support of the ideas that so many people have identified as being important to them. So to that end, our plan is to reactivate the Lincolnville Community Alliance, and that as a nonprofit organization, possibly eventually becoming a federal exempt, tax exempt 501c3. But we do have someone who's volunteered to take this on as an interim and find the right people to do this as on the long term. So one of our team members is willing to take this on and run with it and find who is going to step forward for the next stage, but that would not require you to appoint anyone to a town committee. Our ad hoc committee members, our terms will expire in June. So the only thing I would ask you to consider tonight is because this has been a town project with town support, select board support, town administration support, and because so many people have participated, I'm wondering if you would consider keeping this link on the homepage of the town website. We will disappear as a committee from the town website in June, but I think it's something worth preserving. And if you would consider keeping that on the town website, that would be an ongoing touchstone for people as we continue to guide our actions according to the stated values and concerns and hopes of the people of Lincolnville. in that link, there's also an opportunity to update it with the things that are actually achieved by the ongoing group. But we don't want to spend a lot of money printing these things out because we think it's more valuable to see the color photos, it's kind of like a scrapbook. You can look at those photos and see. It was a good reminder because sometimes my memory blurs. We did so much. And you all participated in so many ways. But when you look at those photos, you see all of the many of the steps that we took along the way. So that would be nice to preserve without printing lots of paper. So that would be my only request. But I would like to ask Sandy if he actually has a printed copy, if he'd like to come up and say anything about this. But if you have any questions.
Yeah, just really quickly, you mentioned about the webpage, the homepage specifically. I can see that as being tough. Right now, we don't have a policy as to how we grant access, if that's what you want to call it, to the homepage. There could be 5, 6, 7, 8, 2 dozen competing ideas for homepage status. So I'm hesitant to assign Heart and Soul permanent standing on the homepage.
We'll have to look at that in greater context, like the Historical Society or the LLA, or that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of hesitant to say, yeah, well, go ahead. It's a great idea because it's an awesome cause, of course. There could be 17 other awesome causes that come to us next week and want the same top billing, as it were.
Well, I'd like to remind you, it's not just a random cause. It was a town project, appointed committee, two sets of appointed committee members. And the reason Cindy Dunham isn't here tonight is because yesterday she and Jim were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary by pedaling around a very warm place of our planet. So, and but I want to just give a shout out about Cindy Dunham. She's been with us right from the beginning, right through the end. And she's been a really steadying, a real veteran in terms of town involvement. But I want to remind you that this project was, it was initiated by the select board, appointed by the select board, the grant was administered by the town administration. And other towns like Rockland have actually enshrined their statements in a plaque that's in their town city council. Yeah. So as a constant reminder to the select board of what the townspeople want.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah, Robin, I guess I don't see a problem with having a link on our homepage that is to community organizations. And then if we've got Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Heart and Soul, the Lincolnville Business Group, any, Historical Society, they can all be at that link. Yep, to community organizations. I feel like we're just saying, oh, we'll have a mess on the homepage. They don't have to have a mess.
It's a great point that Susan brings up. But also both good points but not to diffuse the presentation that Susan's trying to make here tonight. It's a conversation to be continued. But I think that, not to put words in your, but you're floating the idea out so that we can, yeah. So not to
it brought up in kind of what seemed to me a very negative way to say, oh, it's going to open the floodgates and we'll have 17 things.
Well, I just think it could be. I don't think we need to positively. I don't think we need to get lost in a debate about something that is not relevant to the presentation that the agenda item requestee asked for, but the points are both relevant and we should have a conversation in a more constructive and directed way. So there aren't like feelings, there's just information, which we don't have right now. So, but to Mike's point, we do need to be cognizant of how and what we're putting up on websites. We're gonna have a conversation, or we were going to have a conversation about the Historical Society wanting to put a display up here, so, it's relevant at considering unintended consequences. And I don't believe there needs to be a negative connotation attached to that, but getting back to the community action plan and summary report, that Susan is here presenting, or the heart, as a representative for the Heart and Soul is here presenting tonight. I did have a question just about, there's a lot of, action items. And I'm just curious, as you said, that the ad hoc committees, it sounds like you've really, sounds like, and it appears like you've really, knocked it out of the park and, concluding all of the grant related work, and that you're making strides towards this transition. So are these action items things that the, stewardship group will be stewarding?
Yes. Well said. We do call it the stewardship team.
Yeah.
And that stewardship team at this point intends to create a separate organization that would be the Lincolnville Community Alliance. But the intention is to steward those action items that are identified. Now, in that report, the ones that you have printed, you'll see we highlighted the ones that we thought were the most called for and the most feasible. So there were two things, what would be the most possible and the most desirable. So we through that whole process of vetting and that we did at the final summit, action summit, that's where those things rose to the top. That QR code will take you to all of the action items, which are many of them are still worthy. Many may seem frivolous, but who knows, with time, something that was just a twinkle in somebody's eye might actually turn out to be something really important to the whole community. So we didn't want to leave out anything. But we did select the things that were the most viable and the most popular items. So yes, to answer your question, the stewardship team will steward those actions forward. And so I see that team, that organization being kind of a hub. So if somebody comes forward and said, well, we really should have a food sovereign, and we can say, well, who you could talk to. We have some knowledge. We've learned so much in this process about how the town works, what committees we have, what the process is, how long it could take. And so we think, at this point, the people who are stepping forward as stewards could have some advice about who to talk to, how to go about doing something, what resources might be available, and what grants might be available. So also should mention to you that the Community Heart and Soul Foundation is continuing to provide our coach beyond her term. Her funding has expired, her term has expired. They are continuing to pay her to help us continue this process because they believe in what we're doing. And so, what was my point? So this will be an ongoing process. And, and the Community Heart and Soul Foundation also has a website which includes grant possibilities. So this organization could be writing grants. Rather than drawing on taxpayer funds, there are many foundations and organizations in this country that support what we want to have as a good quality of life in our rural communities. So we will have access to that information and we'll be able to share that with people who want to take up one of these actions. We've highlighted some of what we like to call low-hanging fruit, the toy bin down at the beach. That was the kids wanted it. LIA did it. So that was just a clear example of how we connected what was expressed as a wish with a local organization who used their own funds to do that. So that's what's been so exciting about this project. And I'm really looking forward to seeing it go, but continue on. And I think this is an opportunity for you to recognize this project and consider it a success on the part of the town to have sponsored this and to entrusted us with this and to see the result of it.
Thank you so much. And you said, Sandy, would you like to, any other questions for Susan? Okay, thank you so much, Susan.
I'll just go over just kind of a surprise. I've been reading through this while Susan was giving you some explanations, but Zandy Cameron, Youngtown Road, Lincolnville, Maine. Several of the things that have occurred throughout the heart and soul process that actually got legs and came out here that's now really being taken care of and have produced things that are actually happening in the community is what I'm going to highlight. All right, for our small town and rural community, there was a welcome wagon committee that was developed. The town office is familiar with that. They now provide a copy of Diane O'Brien's, what is it? No, I've forgotten the name.
Staying put.
There we go. The basket and everything for anybody new coming to the community. So they automatically get a history of the community. This is something that came out of the heart and soul discussions and projects, and that's been implemented already. And I believe it will help newcomers to the community start to understand a little bit more about who we are, where we came from. Of course, many of the ideas coming through this are being weighed into the comprehensive plan as we move forward. In the environment, now I'm not sure if this is an offshoot of it, but it fits very well. Improving recreational and social gathering opportunities by providing volunteer projects such as helping to create a town campus or other outdoor projects, and promoting scenic view appreciation and protection, including ridgeline protection. Now, Rosie knows intimately about this, and I'm helping with this right now, but there is a Lincolnville Hills project that is basically taking care of the scenic vistas in Lincolnville Hills right now. This fits very well with what the heart and soul of the desire of the community was, and that's moving forward as well. Now we have in safe access, create and expand walking paths, sidewalks, and trails. I believe we got a walkway now from the library to Brisman Park. Okay, so that's another thing that came out of this. For agriculture, forestry, and marine sources, one of the biggest things that I saw personally this summer was a revitalization or rejuvenation of the Grange. Seemed like there was a lot of interest. There's a lot of the local farms that came together to talk about this specific topic the day that we had this discussion to get action items out of it. And it's to bring local farmers together in a cooperative effort to find synergies that benefit all participants. And I am looking forward to how that comes together, because a lot of these different farms, they'll start getting together and start seeing probably a lot more offered to the community through our local farm co-ops and the people here in the community. Also as well, near and dear to my heart from previous discussion tonight, came out with a food sovereignty ordinance was also another item that it came out, and we're also discussing right now from the community discussion, and that came from economy, research and draft food sovereignty ordinance that would allow Lincolnville residents to sell food and beverage products that they produce to other townspeople. Housing was a big one. There's actually a quiet effort going on. There have been a lot of time put into this, but there's actually some effort moving forward. It's documented in this report itself. I won't get too far into it, but there are studies being done and things being, drafted up, and property being discussed to develop some housing, affordable housing for workforce improvement. That's one of the big things we have a problem with here in the coast is we have no workforce housing. Nobody who works here on the wages that are offered can afford to live here. So that's going to bite everybody eventually. But there is work that's coming out of this Heart and Soul project that was developed early on and was identified as an issue. Let me see. And I think that's it for now. Those are the items that I'd like to bring forth that I know that I've seen actually come out of this since I've been working with Heart and Soul. Any questions?
No.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. And thank you for the beautiful presentation and all of the hard work.
Very cool photographs.
Yeah, very. Okay, let's see, where are we? We are back at agenda item number 10, but my understanding is that Diane had asked this to be moved to a
Future agenda.
meeting.
Yep.
Okay. So we will move along to the Harding Brook Crossing. David, do you wish to speak to this at all?
Sure. We are looking to replace the box culvert at the Hardy Brook crossing of Youngtown Road. We obtained a grant to partially fund that work. And so the town sought bids for that work. We received 5 bids ranging from $172,810 to $249,000. The engineer, Grant Landorski, reviewed those bids and the other materials submitted and references. And you have in your packet their recommendation for award, which is to Farley Inc., who was the low responsive and responsible bidder. In other words, they can do the work and they submitted everything we asked. In the amount of $172,810, and that would be done this summer. Our environmental permits limit our in-stream work can't start before July 15th. Some preliminary work might occur prior to it, as long as we're not in the stream. So we don't have a schedule as yet, but we would anticipate sometime probably after the 4th, the road to be closed while this is installed. And hopefully be reopened well in advance of school, but certainly by the time school starts.
Any other question for David on this?
I have a couple of questions. I think I probably missed it when you were just talking about the road closure, but was
Yep.
there a period of time? Like, are we looking at hopefully 4 weeks, 3 weeks? 2
Well,
weeks?
but obviously the shorter amount of time, the better for residents and users of the road. We have limited the contractually, they have July and August. But they don't know exactly when they're, the box is actually we ordered it. If you remember that conversation from a couple of months ago, we've ordered it. It's in the queue waiting to be produced. The contractor doesn't want to start and have the road opened up and then have to demobilize out. So some of it's going to depend on when the box is actually constructed and be able to be delivered to us. We had one contractor that put in the schedule with their bid, which wasn't required, and they weren't the low bidder. They thought they would be there 3 weeks. So it took longer to do Townhouse Road than that though. So that's not the answer, unfortunately.
My other question was, you mentioned that the bid was below what we'd estimated.
Yep.
Does this give us anything we can claw back in the budget?
This money was actually budgeted for previously because we have to have the money available. We've always have road improvement money.
Right.
Not always.
Listed in the road improvement last year, so I guess that's why.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we did. I think.
Now, when I looked at it this afternoon, it wasn't listed last year. It's
Was it
listed
under-
this year?
What did we list? Oh, last
Oh,
one.
capital improvement. Yeah, that's where the road improvement line
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But
what did we-
last year it only, it
we
didn't
did
talk about Hardy Brook. Talked about something.
talked about Calderwood.
Yeah.
Okay, so then it was the year before.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
We had it in a previous budget
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
to line us up, to set us up for
Right,
the
so that-
permitting so that
Oh,
we
okay.
can
Right, they engaged to,
engage
Engage.
before the fiscal year ended.
Right.
there we go.
Okay. So much.
Sorry. Well, you can cut it down to 0 if you want, but that'll challenge the next year's projects.
Would someone care to make a motion, please? Oh, sorry.
Just a real quick question.
Come on up to the podium, sir.
Just a real quick question. Is there a way that you could, without bothering the town, could some people maybe know what the actual, the questions come up to me many times, what's the actual width going to be of that? And so that I could relate it rather than have them call you and ask or something.
We have prepared, in answer to your question and a little bit more, we have prepared a mailing list to send to all of the residents or property owners, not residents, because we don't know all the people that might rent or whatever, of Youngtown Road and the roads that feed into Youngtown Road, Deantown Road, Thurlow Road and whatnot, to give them a status update. And we were kind of waiting for the select board to actually decide that we're going to do this project and award the contract. The road itself, the pavement itself will be the same width as the pavement that's there today. The shoulder of the road, which will remain gravel, will be right where the crossing is, will be about 4 feet on each side. As I'm sure you're aware now, a lot of people aren't, about 6 inches off the side of the pavement right now, you're in the brook. And well, you'll still be able to go swimming in the brook if you wish, Mr. Gary. So we'll have, and the installation will have guardrail. So the shoulder that's from the inside of the guardrail to the inside of the guardrail. And then there'll be shoulder beyond the guardrail because you have to have something to back up the guardrail post and then down to the box culvert itself.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
You did.
Oh, good. You're
Can we
most
make a
welcome.
motion now?
I move the select board to award the contract for Hardy Brook culvert replacement to Farley Inc. of Rockport, Maine, in the bid amount of $172,810.
Second,
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing nothing. All those in favor? Okay. And before we can proceed with the next, just as a point of procedure, as we transition from select board to board of assessors, can Mike vote on the going into vote,
Yes, he is,
but not?
because you're a select board when you vote to go meet as board of
So
assessors.
he can vote in, but not during and not coming out.
Correct.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's right.
Excellent.
So I'll make the motion.
See, I remembered this time.
Me too.
Excellent,
So yeah, I'm gonna make the motion.
excellent.
I move that we suspend our meeting as the select board, that we convene as the board of assessors.
Second.
Moved and well seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And Mike will now recuse himself. And we will invite Mr. Gary up to a microphone, please. As he is an appointed assessor for the town of Lincolnville. David, would you care to give a brief explanation?
Sure,
of
and I
what we're talking
probably should have sent this to the other assessor too. Since we're all on a bit of a learning curve here. Anyhow, Betty Heald is the last meeting you sought to withdraw a couple pieces of property from the farmland program, has another piece of property that is in the farmland program that she is voluntarily seeking to remove. That's a property located at 2546 Belfast Road. And because once you're in the farmland or tree growth, when you choose to get out of it, there's a look back provision in the law regarding what you need to pay in back taxes. And so that has been calculated by the assessor's agent at $1,674.25. Betty is aware of that and agreeable to that, still wants to get out of the program. Because she's going to look to sell the piece of property.
Any other questions? All right, would someone care to make a motion, please?
I move the board approve and sign the farmland withdrawal penalty commitment for Elizabeth Heald in the amount of $1,674.25.
second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
What is
Seeing none, all those in favor? And can I please have a final motion so we can get on with the rest of our business today?
I move that we adjourn our meeting as the board of assessors and reconvene as a select board.
I second that.
Jeez.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you, Rosie. Much appreciated.
You guys are such a happy group.
He doesn't listen.
Thanks, Karen. And next on our agenda, we have a review of the draft annual town meeting warrant. David, do you want to share anything about this?
Sure. The board on March 10th, I believe, finalized its budget recommendations. That has gone to the budget committee. And to give them your newly revised budget. With your recommendations for anybody at home, the budget is now proposed to increase 2.39% over what was approved last year by the voters. For the operation of municipal services, which is a component of the overall budget for the town, and which also includes the school and the counties. Share anyhow. So we take the budget recommendations that you've made, put it into town meeting warrant format, which is what you have in your packet. The idea being, if we get this out early, you folks, if there's something glaringly wrong, it gets identified earlier the better so that we can make corrections. Ultimately, this will go, the draft warrant articles, not all of them, but any ones that appropriate money. So Articles 5 through 16 will go to the budget committee at their public hearing in April for their recommendations. And ultimately, the following meeting after the budget committee makes their recommendations, will be back to you to sign and approve so we can post and we can get ballots and all that other good stuff. Beyond the budget articles, we have articles, in there about alewives and accepting gifts and all that other thing. And if you had anything else that we didn't include, time is of the essence, as they say, because we're, believe it or not, rapidly approaching June.
So did anyone find any errors?
Well, I wouldn't call it an error, but I had a question because it seemed like at the end of our workshop, when we were talking, I thought Steve, or maybe it was Kern, mentioned that we were talking about the snowmobile club. They said it was kind of inactive, defunct, and I was wondering about Article 18, where we give the money received for snowmobile registrations to the snowmobile club to maintain the trails. It got me thinking, if they're sort of defunct, who's going to maintain the trails and what should we do with that money?
There has seemed to be, during my tenure here, a little ebb and a flow to the snowmobile club, and it seems to flow when there's snow and ebb when there isn't. Is that a fair way to put it? And we could consider adding something to, say, to the Lincolnville Mountain Goat Snowmobile Club or a similar organization or something like that.
Yeah.
As deemed appropriate by the select board, so that if somebody stepped up and said, I'm not the snowmobile club, but I wanted to go cut trees down. And
well, after listening to conversation this evening, I personally would like to see it go to whatever organization thinks they want to help maintain the snowmobile trails as hiking trails, so that it's all going to the same area.
Well, and that's what I was gonna say, reading the Recreation Commission's
Yes.
meeting minutes, it seems like they want to pursue that avenue.
Yes.
So maybe it does make sense to add in or other as deemed appropriate by the select board, because I think that that's a great conversation, because it could be a service to both groups. Functional in the summer and then usable as a snowmobile trail in the winter.
The only question I have is that, are we restricted in any way? Is this money coming from the state registration? Are we restricted in any way by the state as to who this money goes to? That is,
Good
as
question.
far as, do they have
Yeah.
an earmark for snowmobile clubs?
Your Augusta experience coming in.
so these are all very good questions. And this is a prime example of why we bring this out early. because I don't think in 21 years we've ever had a conversation about that article. So what I would like to do is to take these questions and run back to somebody that actually knows the answer, or look up or investigate myself what the answers are. No, I'm not going to do that. I was going to say I'd give you an answer off the cuff, but I'm not sure, and I don't want to backtrack later. So,
But it seems, I mean, the tenor is that we want the snowmobiles to continue to be maintained, and if they can be a dual purpose or what, the sentiment remains the same, but you're just saying
Well, I just was-
nuance of the language.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, because I was thinking, well, if the snowmobile club is kind of defunct, are we just kind of putting money in there that's not gonna get used to maintain the trails, because right now nobody's maintaining them?
Well,
I mean, I think it's great if.
I know one of the things that I would like to see happen is, we know how many snowmobiles are registered here in town. I would like the snowmobile club to take the lead on getting the information to the people who are registering all these sleds in this town to stay on marked trails. The reason I'm saying that is I've had people call me, and why are snowmobiles all over the school yard when there's a trail right beside it? Why are snowmobiles going down the road in front of my house and then going in so-and-so's field and then in the ditch? It's,
Yeah,
I'd like to see, I hope the snowmobile club isn't defunct. I said that the other night because there hasn't been a lot of participation this year. And like David said, it seems to be an ebb and a flow.
which
with
makes
that.
sense. I
So-
mean, if there's no snow.
Yeah, but also they're going on the trails that the school has maintained. So I think, there's a lot of things that need to be taken care of there. And if we're going to hand them the money, and potentially consider another group to get the money if the snowmobile club is not needed or is defunct, then I think we need to have some defined rules.
Yeah, so David, you'll follow up and
I
get
will.
back to us.
we will.
All right, anything else? All right, to be continued. And moving on to select person updates. Karen, do you have an update for us?
I do not at this time.
All right, Mike?
Yeah, update wise, the woodshed season, the Waldo woodshed season for distribution is closed. So there shouldn't be any more activity at that shed there. Except, like I mentioned, we're getting delivery in a couple months of a lot of firewood. Other than that, there shouldn't be any activity.
Okay. Robin?
No update.
And I also do not. We have the treasurer and payroll warrants to approve and sign.
I move the board approve and sign the treasurer's and payroll warrants.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing nothing, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And if there's no other business to attend to.
I had a question for David, and it has to do, well, we're talking budget just about every time we get together. David, has there been any more information on audit from school? Or I think it's 2 audits that we're due now. Has there been any more information on that? I ask because that superintendent, there's a replacement. Here's your bonus. Thank you for the wonderful job you've done. But she's no longer here or won't be here pretty quickly. So we're still in a mess, and there's
Well, I don't know if we're still in a mess, but we certainly don't have our audits.
Yeah.
My last check-in was that the school believes it has provided what is necessary to the auditor, and the auditor has been here to look or gather the school information for the FY 23. Yep, FY 23 year. But I don't have any further update in terms of what that means for them to come to get our stuff or sit in this room and do their audit until they check the school stuff, which feeds ours, and then they can't do 24s until obviously 23 is done.
okay.
So we're still in limbo land here. And we're
And
gonna be
not the
ending.
only town that's in limbo land.
No, we're not, but that doesn't make, doesn't make me feel any better to know that, somebody else is behind too. Just, no offense, I don't care about anybody else, I care about us.
Well, you see what I'm getting at.
I do.
is The year 24 still has to be done along with finishing up 23. And the
And-
person that was responsible for that is moving on.
Yep,
And
and we're a couple months away from 25 being, fiscal year 25 being done.
Okay.
I
Thank you for the question.
yeah,
share those
not
concerns.
good.
I was simply gonna mention that, as the beginning of the meeting, the town administrator's report, I asked Dave that if we had received anything back on that that letter that we sent to the DOT.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna suggest that at a future meeting soon, we have a conversation about setting a deadline for receiving word back from them. The reason I say that is because, we've, received an offer of a meeting with the DOT commissioner about this very issue. But obviously, it should go through the channels prior to that. But we can only give it so much time. I would think.
So are you saying just send a touch base letter saying,
I don't know.
what are you saying?
I don't know if we want to push that person, the DOT, who we sent the letter to get back to us. If
Okay,
that's the best way, or instead a deadline amongst ourselves, when we then say, well, maybe we should move on to stage 2, which is having another conversation amongst ourselves, do we want to go up and have some representatives, sit down with the commissioner?
You mean with the subtext of having not heard from
Yes, exactly,
the primary contact
right,
or the secondary primary contact?
yeah, I guess now. It's
The new primary concept.
But yeah.
Yeah.
That, well, maybe it makes sense to ask the town administrator to just poke
That might be the best way.
poke the bear and then maybe at our next gathering.
send them a Snapchat, you can poke. I learned that the
What
other
are the
day.
words that just came out of your mouth?
Let the interim primary person know that we are in the process of arranging a meeting with the commissioner. Maybe that would move us higher on their priority.
I would actually, I don't get into conversation, discussions, I think it might be appropriate for the next meeting.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do nothing.
Yeah.
But I'm not so sure that's the best idea. I think we need to internally go through what they need to go through.
Yeah.
Without doing pressure.
Yep. Yeah, but good point, and we definitely should just put it on. It doesn't hurt putting it on an agenda item because
Yeah.
you get the press and all those things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, if there's no further business to attend to, I will entertain a final motion, please.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Yeah, we're all second.
Second, across the board, any discussion?